4. Imagine.
Welcome back. This is Y254 News. It is Business Tuesday. We're talking about matters business in the country, and today is all about international relations and whether international relations in Kenya can promote the economic growth within the country. I am joined by two guests. One is next to me, Vitalis Oyo, who is a proprietor from Venus Technologies. Welcome, Vitalis. I am also joined by Timothy Gashusha, who is the co-founder of Young Entrepreneurs Network Africa. Welcome. Now, we are talking about the international relations. But before we go into that, if my director would pull it up, we have the Kenyan policy. The Kenyan policies. And I will give to you 5 pillars of the Kenyan policies. And coming up to your screens in just a little bit, we shall have the objectives of the Kenyan policy as it was published in November 2014. Right about on your screens there, you can see that the Kenyan policy objective is having 5 pillars. The first one is peace diplomacy pillar, economic diplomacy pillar, diaspora environmental and cultural diplomacy pillar. Now, the objectives there are a couple that you may see on your screen, which shall lead to our discussion. And I would like us to continue discussing. Send us your text. 22162 is the number. Don't forget to start with the word news, and we shall read your comments to you. When we have sustainability in the country, we have economic growth, and we have public relations, international relations. Kenya has been having a long battle with its economy of late, and it is just a few weeks, actually some time ago, that according to the Tourism Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala, that they have been trying to pull up the economic sector. How do you think we can be able to pull it up regardless of factors that have been pulling us down, like the election violence? We had tourists leaving the country in a few months ago. Now we are trying to pull it back again. How do we deal with this, especially in regards to the international relations? Vitalis.
Thank you very much, Ram.
Thank you.
The first thing first, I think Kenya, we have to say that we're on the right track with the handshake that brought peace. 2, we have to acknowledge the fact that Kenya is fast growing, and this growth is basically dependent on foreign investment and the local. And in particular, in the manufacturing industry, we are not able to do it on our own because we have not reached the par. In tourism, the local tourism cannot sustain the market. So we still depend on foreign tourists. Now, when there are conflicts or sudden conflicts that occur, like the post-election or pre-election as it were, then we tend to send away all the investors who come to bring us foreign exchange through tourism. Also, the investors who want to invest in Kenya, they see a potential of violence, and therefore it's likely to push them away.
So are you saying Kenya cannot produce its own services? Do you think it can't?
We can. We have the potential. What we lack, one, is the goodwill from the government. The government has to set pace. Just like we have realized when it is too late, doing the curriculum-based education so that we nurture talent. We do not manufacture people. Like you study CRE the whole year, and yet you don't become a pastor. So if we can be able to manufacture people who are able to become very productive in the market, like for instance, my case, I am in the ICT. If I was nurtured early, given the right tools early, then I think I'll be able to actually do designs and production, just like Korea does.
That is Vitalis. You're not nurtured earlier.
Thank you. Because you're given everything, you swallow in the same basket.
If I will come to you, Timothy. Yes. In the sector of the government, there is a research that was done by the Ministry of Tourism. And Najib Balala, the Cabinet Secretary, released statistics that received that when the country recorded 20.3% growth last year to post earnings of 120 billion shillings. This means that we have actually improved with international arrivals to Kenya increasing by 9.8% to 1.4 million from the previous year's 1.3 million. Now, is the government on the right track when it comes to the initiative that he has said? He has mentioned that the government might not be doing its best. What do you think?
I think just from what you've talked about, tourism is one of the sectors that amazingly did very, very well last year compared to the predicted performance. But if you look holistically, when we talk about economic growth and international relations, then we start looking at matters of imports and exports. And as a country, we between January and June and July 2017, last year, we lost close to about 6 billion in re-exports. That is what we sell to other landlocked countries like Uganda around us and Rwanda. And we lost about 1.8 billion in exports market. So really, holistically speaking, we did lose a lot as a country, and that increased the import-export balance. So we did have an imbalance of trade of about 12.2 billion. So, and this is $1 billion. So really, as a country, times of political crisis paint a very, very negative picture of us as a country, especially in terms of trade, because economic growth is largely dependent on the picture that the international countries, other countries, in the EU, the US market, the regional market within Africa is very determinant around our exports and our growth as a country. So if we're not able to contain ourselves during political times to be able to still produce and export and sell a good picture of our country, then we may be losing a lot within political time frames.
In fact, what we gain might be less than what we are losing, less than what we lose.
More or less the same, because we gained in tourism, we lost in exports, and we had more imports into the country. So there was a trade imbalance because of that.
What do you think? Currently, in one of our news bulletins tonight, earlier we mentioned that the cost of charcoal has increased. Now, if we have the budget of the country, which was red, it has actually increased. We have a higher budget within the country. So, do you really feel that the country is heading towards the right direction when it comes to now? Are we killing ourselves? We are talking about international relations with other people. Even before we relate with other countries outside, do we need to sort our issues first?
Thank you, Ram. Most significantly, when we talk about ourselves in Kenya, is that there are long-term things that we can do and there are short-term things that we can do. One, a healthy society, if you're healthy today, eating, but in the next 5 years, you are dying because there is no water, is a crisis. While in the short term today, we are looking at the cost of charcoal going up. But we also say that we need this water catchment that people destroy to bring this charcoal to us.
Actually, in one of the counties within the country that had a problem with charcoal, we had people actually banning lorries because they did not want lorries to transport charcoal into their county.
Actually, it's not people banning the charcoal because they don't want the lorries. It's people feeling the impact of charcoal burning and deforestation. Because if you cannot get water, like you remember, we forget too fast. It has rained, it has flooded. But look at the climate change. It is seriously affecting even farming. Even those people who are staying in arid areas like Kitui and Wajir and the other places where they burn charcoal quite significantly, and even Uasin Gishu and Baringo. The effect is real, especially like in Baringo, where they depend on animals for survival. The effect is real because the animals cannot get water. The animals cannot get leaves to feed on because of deforestation. I think the key thing is let us suffer as the government looks for a solution, either to lower the cost of kerosene so that people can be, the low class, can try as much as possible to use kerosene. But again, kerosene is not a solution because it's also affecting the production, is affecting the sale of diesel because some people adulterate the diesel with it. The solution would be bring gas closer to the people so that people can use gas to cook and then lower the tariffs of electricity so that in urban areas, people can affordably use electricity to cook.
Now, coming to you, maybe you would add something on top of that if I really have anything to comment. We have Kenya having relations with China. We have built many roads in this country. We have the Thika superhighway. We have also other developments like the standard gauge railway that and many other things. Kenya-China relationships. What do you think about this kind of thing? Is it healthy?
We have a very skewed Kenya-China relationship because it's not a win-win kind of scenario. China is the one which is benefiting. We may seem to see it as if it's a win-win situation because we are seeing roads, we're seeing SGR, we're seeing the superhighways, but realistically speaking, as a country, we're getting into debt more and more. And actually, the recent statistics that was all over the news was that our burden to China in terms of debt is the highest compared to any other country.
Wow.
And but perhaps we may have an opportunity to redeem ourselves in terms of that imbalance by China is one of the largest, it's actually the largest importer of oil globally. And as a country, we have crude oil to a tune of 1.1 billion barrels. So I hope that in the long term, when we are able to develop ourselves around, the Talos, then we can perhaps sell to China and export to China so that they can buy from us. Then perhaps we would balance the imbalance that is currently there. But I think as we speak right now, we have a very skewed relationship, and also we have a very wrong relationship because even in those contracts, the government contracts between Kenya and China, you also find clauses that do not promote use of local machinery or equipment. So you find that a lot of the equipment being used within the process of the SGR or the roads are still coming back, are coming from China to Kenya instead of using locally available equipment. So that is the imbalance that I see in that respect. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe to add something, I think we are losing it to China.
We are losing to China.
We are losing it to China.
Actually, before you continue, I have received a text here from the one of our viewers, and please send us a text. 22162 is our number, starting with the word news. Someone here has asked, and I think you have mentioned it. Does international relations pose a danger to neocolonialism? Another question is advantages. Does China get any advantage standing? What does China have to benefit from their partnership with Kenya? Okay, if you can add as you continue.
Maybe I was just coming to answer the second question. Sometimes we bite more than we can chew.
Okay.
Because of what significant gain is it to import human resource, to import equipment, and then pay it wholesomely? It means that you're not building the local human resource that you have. If you import engineers from China, and then you only give Kenya a percentage of, let's say 10% of the total engineers who are working, like for instance on the SGR. Still, currently if you go to the SGR as it stands today, it's already operational.
Yeah.
Majority of the people who work there, including the servicemen who service the trains, the locomotives as they move, are Chinese. While the other day, I was seeing in the news that the president sent some few people to go and train in China, and we welcomed them in a big way. Can we not trust our own?
In your opinion, you would say that we are not promoting our own people?
To some extent, it is true, because we have taken people to China for training. We come back, we are not able to retain these people. We still give the Chinese men, and mostly they are men, I rarely see women, opportunities where we can have our youth do this one.
What do you think?
And I think it's actually largely attributed to how you structure the contracts. If you structure a contract being build, operate, transfer, then that's why we have a situation where the standard gauge railway is already built, but it's still the Chinese who are operating it before they transfer it to Kenya in about 10 years. But we should have contracts which are build and transfer immediately, so that you're able to look at local capacity and invest in local capacity. Kenya is one of the countries that has some of the most highly skilled, and highly educated youth. So if we do not invest in empowering these young people, then that's why we end up with situations where during political times, Kenya becomes a hotbed. But we all know that Kenya is a hotbed of innovation and creativity, but which is still lying very much untapped. And I also think that the other thing that is very critical is perhaps as you seek to incentivize investors coming into the country, you should look at to what extent are you also balancing inclusivity of the local, local SMEs, local businesses, local corporates. Yesterday I happened to attend what is called the Nation Leadership Forum, and we were talking about manufacturing, and the CS for industrialization was there, and questions were being raised around promoting local SMEs. To what extent can we have young people who are coming up with amazing innovations in technology, in manufacturing? To when will their innovations ever reach the ear of the government, and then they are the ones empowered to actually implement the projects? So I think that disconnect between the one side where we are educating young brilliant minds, but the other side where we do not provide the opportunities where they can get into employment, or they can start industries which the government can then employ, then I think that is a disconnect which is causing us to at one point lag behind and China takes over.
Wow. Yeah. That is Timothy Gashusha, a Young Entrepreneurs Network Africa co-founder, and Vitaly Zoyo, the proprietor of Vinis Technologies. I would like to thank you for coming. The conversation is really deep, and I would like you to stop it from there because time is not on our side. Please keep the conversation going on our line on Facebook, Twitter at Y254. The hashtag is Y254 updates. This has been Business Tuesday. We were talking about the kind of international relations that Kenya has with other countries. That can international relations promote the economic growth of Kenya? Keep the conversation going. We have learned about many things, especially concerning whether Kenya needs to retain those people that they take out to train. For example, recently we had 50 doctors sent to Cuba for training, and many things. But keep the conversation going. It has been good. We would like to wind down the story today. I want to appreciate each and every person that made today's highlights become a success. On behalf of everybody, I want to wish you a lovely night. God bless. My name is Ram Aguko.